There's something beneath everything you've ever known. Something more expansive, more fundamental than the atoms in your body or the stars in the sky. Something ancient, silent, and incomprehensibly powerful. Not a place, not a force, not even a dimension in the traditional sense, but a pure potentiality waiting just beyond the edges of your awareness. This is the quantum void. Most people go through life believing they understand the rules. Matter is solid. Time moves forward. Space is vast but predictable. Cause leads to effect. And yet, just beneath the surface of this apparent order lies a far more mysterious and paradoxical realm. A place where the rules break down and new truths begin to emerge. This is where we're going. Not into speculation or shallow mysticism, but into the intersection of science and metaphysics, consciousness and cosmology. We're going past the observable into a domain so strange that even our language fails to describe it. Yet it's from this void that every particle, every thought, every star, and every dream may originate. This series is a gateway into that hidden domain. Over the next 12 episodes, we're going to unpack the nature of existence from the inside out. We'll be confronting the illusion of solidity, questioning whether we live inside a holographic framework, and examining if your consciousness is a mirror of the cosmos or its original source. We'll explore quantum entanglement and the web of instantaneous connection, challenge the flow of time, and peer into the infinite reflections of parallel realities. But it doesn't stop at theory. You'll also learn practical insights, techniques, and perspectives to apply this understanding in your own experience. Because the quantum void isn't just some esoteric playground for physicists or philosophers. It may be the very matrix through which your thoughts shape matter, where healing can begin, and where awareness unlocks new timelines. This isn't about escaping the world. It's about looking more closely at it, and recognizing that what seems solid is only a ripple across a deeper field. That field is you, and it's also beyond you, both the question and the answer, both the seed and the infinite garden. Everything you see is real, and yet nothing is as it appears. You're not just watching a video series. You're standing at the edge of something vast, ancient, and infinitely creative. In this first chapter, we'll begin by cracking the most deeply held assumption of all, the belief that reality is solid, fixed, and external. The illusion of solidity is not only one of the greatest perceptual misunderstandings in human history, it's also the doorway through which a much larger truth begins to reveal itself. And that truth may change the way you see everything. Everything you touch feels solid. Your body feels firm. A table supports your weight. A rock doesn't pass through your hand. These experiences form the foundation of your belief in a stable, concrete world. But this belief is false. When physicists peer deep into the structure of matter, what they find is not solidity, but vast, echoing emptiness. At the smallest scales, beneath atoms, beneath quarks, what appears as matter is mostly nothing. Over 99.9999999% of an atom is empty space. The electrons, protons, and neutrons are not tiny balls of substance. They are energy fluctuations, vortexes of probability, temporary concentrations of what might be. And what holds all this together? Not bricks and mortar, but fields, vibrating, dynamic fields spanning all of space. What we call particles are just localized excitations in these invisible fields, like a ripple on the surface of a lake. Brief, specific, and inherently connected to everything else. This is the first crack in the illusion. If what seems solid is mostly empty, and if the stuff of reality is more like vibration than substance, then what exactly are you walking on? What is your body made of? What are you trusting when you sit in a chair or touch a wall? And now we arrive at one of the most provocative ideas in modern theoretical physics, the holographic principle. In simple terms, this principle suggests that our entire universe may function like a hologram. Not a metaphor, but literally. According to this theory, all the information that describes our three-dimensional world may actually be encoded on a two-dimensional boundary, a surface that exists at the outer edges of the universe. This is not science fiction. It arises from attempts to resolve paradoxes in black hole physics and quantum gravity. The work of scientists like Gerard T. Hooft and Leonard Susskind has laid the groundwork, and research continues at institutions like CERN and the Perimeter Institute. So what does it mean for you? If the holographic principle is true, then your experience of a 3D world is the result of information projected inward from a cosmic boundary. The physical universe may be emergent, not fundamental, like the image on a screen that comes from code stored elsewhere. That raises uncomfortable and exhilarating questions. Is your mind also part of the projection? Or is it tapping into the source code behind the screen? Some interpretations suggest that consciousness is not bound by the projection, that your awareness might be able to access deeper layers where time is nonlinear, where intent shapes probability, and where the physical world becomes malleable under certain conditions. And now we pivot to a powerful parallel. Ancient metaphysical systems have hinted at this for millennia. In Hindu philosophy, the material world is described as Maya, an illusion, a play of appearances. In Buddhism, the nature of reality is seen as empty of inherent existence, dependent on perception and interpretation. In Hermetic traditions, the axiom "as above, so below" echoes the fractal nature of a holographic reality. These aren't primitive myths. They may be intuitive recognitions of the very structure that modern physics is just beginning to quantify. This convergence between ancient wisdom and modern science is not coincidence. It's an unfolding synthesis, a revelation through different languages, mathematics, and meditation, of the same core insight. Reality, as we perceive it, is not what it appears to be. And that leads us to simulation theory. Proposed more recently by thinkers like Nick Bostrom, simulation theory posits that an advanced civilization or intelligence could generate a fully immersive simulated reality indistinguishable from base reality. In this view, you may be living inside a simulation, a constructed environment designed either for evolution, experimentation, or even entertainment. While this theory sounds wild, it's being seriously considered by leading scientists and technologists, and its implications overlap with the holographic principle in striking ways. If both theories are true, then your world may not only be informationally encoded, it may also be interactive, responsive to your attention, your beliefs, and perhaps your deeper intent. So where does this leave you? With a staggering possibility. If solidity is an illusion, if what you call matter is really energy shaped by observation, then your role in the universe is not passive. It is participatory. You are not just in the world. You are influencing it through your consciousness, whether you're aware of it or not. This is not wishful thinking. It is consistent with experimental findings in quantum physics, and it points to a reality that is far more fluid, far more interactive than anything you've been taught. Everything feels solid because your nervous system is tuned to interpret vibrations that way. But the deeper truth is that you're swimming through a sea of fields, patterns, and probabilities. The world is not fixed, it is in flux. Not permanent, but programmable. And this realization is not meant to disorient you. It's meant to liberate you. Because once you grasp that the world around you is not set in stone, you can begin to ask new questions. Bigger questions. Questions that stretch beyond matter, beyond identity, beyond even time. Questions that lead ever so gently into the void itself. In every tradition, every culture, and every cutting-edge scientific theory, there's a whisper of something beyond the known, a background presence, a stillness beneath the motion of all things. It goes by many names: source, vacuum, field, or simply the void, but its true nature remains as elusive as it is essential. To understand the quantum void, we must first understand what it is not. It is not nothingness. When most people hear the word void, they think of absence, a blank canvas, an empty room with no furniture. But in the language of quantum physics, emptiness is anything but empty. In fact, the vacuum, the so-called void of space, is teeming with activity. Virtual particles blink in and out of existence. Energy fields ripple at infinitesimal scales. Fluctuations burst, collapse, and cancel in the span of microseconds. All of this occurs in what's called the zero-point field. Zero-point energy is the lowest possible energy that a quantum system can have, and it exists even at absolute zero temperature. This is not theoretical. It's measurable. The famous Casimir effect, for instance, demonstrates how two uncharged plates placed in a vacuum attract each other, not because of gravity, but due to differences in the energy of the vacuum around them. Something is pushing. Something is alive in the silence. This quantum vacuum is the foundational field beneath all physical phenomena. Every atom in your body, every star in the sky, and every signal in your brain arises from this seething quantum bedrock. It's not visible, it's not tangible, but it is profoundly real and it connects everything. This leads us to an extraordinary realization. The void is not empty space. It is the womb of the universe. The ancient Taoists described it as the Tao, the unnameable origin of heaven and earth. Quantum physicists call it the quantum field, the zero-point substrate, or vacuum state. But regardless of name, the characteristics are the same. Infinite potential, non-local connectivity, and fundamental stillness beneath motion. And this brings us to the most crucial insight of all. This void is not separate from you. You are woven from it. Your thoughts rise from it. Your every experience is a modulation, a crest on a deeper wave that flows through the cosmos. But what makes the void so significant isn't just its physical nature. It's how it interacts with consciousness. Traditional science has long assumed that the mind is a product of the brain, and that the brain is an isolated biological machine. But quantum models suggest something more profound. That consciousness may not be generated, but accessed. That awareness itself might arise from a deeper order, a realm of pure potential, outside of time and space as we understand them. In this view, your brain is not a generator of consciousness, but a receiver, a tuner. And the signal it's receiving comes from the same quantum void that gives birth to particles, forces, and dimensions. This reframes everything. You are not a closed system. You are a wave pattern on an infinite ocean. And in that ocean, every potential version of reality already exists, not as solid objects, but as probability clouds, waiting for the observer to bring them into form. And here's where intention becomes relevant. In quantum physics, observation collapses probabilities into reality. Before something is measured, it exists in a state of superposition, many possibilities all at once. But when attention is applied, when the void is looked into, one version crystallizes. One path becomes actual. This is not just theoretical. It's demonstrable in controlled experiments. Now consider this: if reality emerges through observation, and if your consciousness is intimately entangled with the field from which reality emerges, then what are you choosing even now with every thought you think? The quantum void is not passive. It's responsive. It does not dictate reality, it hosts it. But you, the conscious being, may be playing a more active role than you ever imagined. Not because you control the universe, but because you are co-arising with it, moment by moment, through an unseen energetic dialogue. In mysticism, this is the divine creative process. In physics, it's quantum fluctuation and observer participation. Different maps, same terrain. But let's go even further. The void is not only the source of material reality, it's also the foundation of time. The experience of time as a flowing river, from past to future, is deeply tied to your perception. But the void exists outside that current. In the quantum realm, events are not always bound by temporal sequence. Particles can influence each other across time. Information may move backward as well as forward. Retrocausality, though still controversial, is gaining theoretical ground. What this suggests is staggering. Within the void, time may not even be linear. It may be an emergent property of consciousness interacting with potential. In simpler terms, past, present, and future could all be facets of a larger, timeless whole. And this matters deeply, because it means your future isn't fixed. Your reality isn't bound. And your identity isn't limited to the stories you've lived so far. You are part of a larger canvas, a field of infinite possibility, always shifting, always accessible. But accessing this awareness isn't about effort. It's about recognition, stillness, presence. When the mind becomes quiet, when thought ceases its constant narration, you begin to feel the deeper pulse of existence. The part of you that's always been there, beneath the noise. That's where the void becomes not an idea, but an experience. It is not found in outward movement but inward awareness. So, why does the quantum void matter? Because it may be the origin of everything you perceive, and yet it remains completely free from those perceptions. Because it holds every possibility, yet demands nothing. Because it reveals that reality is not hard and fixed, but soft and alive, interwoven with your every moment of attention. The void is not absence. It is pure presence. It holds no shape, and yet from it come all shapes. Cannot be seen, and yet through it, everything becomes visible. And you are not outside of it. You are not separate. You are its expression, a node of awareness within the infinite field. To know the void is not to leave this world behind, but to see it anew, to perceive the dance behind the dancer, the music before the song. This is not just philosophy. It is the quiet truth behind physics, mysticism, and your own beating heart. There's a silent question that has haunted physicists, philosophers, and seekers for centuries. Is reality something that exists independently of our awareness? Or is our awareness somehow shaping it at every level? Traditional science has long operated under the assumption that the universe is fundamentally objective, that consciousness is merely a byproduct of biology, a neurological side effect of complex brains. But cracks have appeared in that narrative, cracks revealed not by mystics alone, but by the physics labs of the 20th and 21st centuries. At the heart of this shift lies a single phenomenon that refuses to behave: the quantum wave function. Before any observation is made, a quantum system doesn't settle into a single state. Instead, it exists as a superposition of all possible states. A particle is here, there, and everywhere in a cloud of potential until someone measures it. And when that measurement occurs, the wave function collapses. One reality is selected, the others fall away. This alone challenges everything we think we know. Because the universe, at its smallest scales, does not resolve itself until it is observed. The act of measurement doesn't just reveal a fact, it creates the fact. The particle isn't in a position until we look, until consciousness enters the equation. This phenomenon has been demonstrated repeatedly, most famously in the double-slit experiment. When photons or electrons pass through a pair of slits, they behave like waves, creating an interference pattern, unless you observe them. The moment a measurement device is used to determine which slit the particle passes through, the interference vanishes. The particle behaves like a discrete object instead of a wave. Its behavior literally changes based on the presence of observation. Let that settle in. Something shifts at the quantum level when conscious attention is applied. This isn't conjecture. It's empirical data. But the implications are so radical that many have tried to brush them aside. And yet, the data persists. So what does this mean for your experience? It means that consciousness is not some incidental bystander. It may be the hidden architect behind what we call reality. Your awareness may be part of the fabric from which reality is continuously woven. This shifts the question from, what is reality made of, to what is the nature of the observer? And now we reach the threshold of an idea that has profound metaphysical and scientific implications. That the observer and the observed are not separate. They are entangled in a loop of co-creation. You are not witnessing the universe, you are participating in its formation. In this view, the universe does not unfold as a script already written. It emerges from the interplay between potential and perception, between quantum probability and conscious focus. This principle doesn't stop at the microscopic. Though mainstream science resists the idea of consciousness having macroscopic influence, growing evidence suggests that mental intention, focused, coherent awareness, can produce measurable effects in the physical world. Experiments with meditation, random number generators, and even studies involving focus group intention point toward an interaction between consciousness and physical systems that cannot be explained by classical models. But perhaps this is not surprising. If consciousness is woven into the fabric of the quantum field, then its influence would be subtle but profound, like tuning a string that shifts the tone of an entire instrument. Not through brute force, but through resonance. And resonance leads us to coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and awareness become coherent, when they move in unified rhythm rather than scattered chaos, your influence on the quantum field may become more precise. This isn't just esoteric speculation. It's supported by studies in heart-brain coherence and focused intention research, which show that conscious focus can create patterns of order in systems that would otherwise appear random. So why is this important? Because it suggests that you are not merely at the mercy of an external world. You are an active node in a dynamic field. And the quality of your consciousness, the clarity of your awareness, may be shaping the flow of events, the health of your body, and the course of your life. This places enormous creative power in your hands. But it also demands responsibility. You cannot unsee the truth once it is glimpsed. That each thought, each moment of attention, is not neutral. It's a choice, a brushstroke on the canvas of existence. When you worry, when you fear, when you doubt, you are shaping probabilities. Not because thought alone is magic, but because attention is a form of alignment. And when that alignment reaches the void, the source field, the quantum matrix, it resonates outward. Subtle changes ripple across the structure of potential. What was once improbable begins to shift toward presence. This is not about bending the world to your will. It's about realizing you are already inside the loop of creation, and always have been. Ancient traditions understood this in their own way. The mystic who stills their mind is not escaping reality. They are entering the deeper machinery behind it. The yogi in meditation is not hallucinating. They are synchronizing with the quantum substrate from which all things emerge. The shaman who journeys beyond form is not chasing fantasy. They are accessing informational realms that transcend spacetime. In these practices, consciousness is not dismissed. It is honored, not as an illusion, but as the organizing principle behind matter. And now, science begins to echo this ancient insight. Physicists like John Wheeler spoke of a participatory universe, where the act of observation brings the cosmos into being. Not metaphorically, literally. Consciousness, in this view, is not a side effect of evolution. It is a necessary component of reality itself. Which brings us to you. You are not small. You are not a fragment. You are not a powerless passenger in a mechanical cosmos. You are the witness and the weaver. And in the silent gap between your thoughts, in the still point behind your mind, you can feel it. That underlying presence. That unmoving awareness. That which sees, but is not seen. That is the source. That is the field. That is the void. Listening. Responding. Creating. And now, the question is no longer about the universe. The question is about you. Are you willing to observe with intention? Are you willing to align thought, emotion, and attention into coherence? Because the void is listening. And consciousness, your consciousness, is the signal it responds to. Two particles, once connected, now separated by 1,000,000 miles. You measure one, and the other instantly reflects the result. No message was sent. No signal passed between them. Yet the change happens faster than light could travel. This is quantum entanglement. To the classical mind, it seems absurd. It violates our sense of distance, our faith in locality, our entire understanding of how information moves. But the phenomenon is real. It's been verified repeatedly in laboratories around the world. And its implications are more than strange, they're revolutionary. At the heart of entanglement is the idea that particles, once linked, never fully become independent. Their properties remain correlated, regardless of space. And not just similar, but perfectly aligned, even when measured across vast distances. It's as if the universe is less a collection of parts, and more a single, unified system in disguise. This shakes the foundations of everything. If a choice made in one place can influence an outcome in another instantly, then the concept of separateness begins to dissolve. Space becomes more like an illusion of perspective, a local view on a deeply interconnected whole. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance, uncomfortable with its violation of relativity. But time has not erased it. The data holds. Entangled particles behave in perfect coordination, as though whispering across the void. But how? One interpretation suggests that the universe isn't transmitting information at all, because the entangled particles aren't truly separated. They may appear divided from a three-dimensional viewpoint, But in the deeper structure of reality, they are one. Like 2 points on the surface of a sphere that are connected beneath by a direct tunnel through the center. What looks like distance is only geometry. In truth, there is no gap. This leads us to a breathtaking conclusion. Reality may be non-local at its core, and this is not limited to subatomic particles. The principle of entanglement may extend to systems of greater complexity, perhaps even to you. Consider this possibility. Your consciousness is not a bubble trapped in your skull. It is entangled with the fabric of existence. Your mind, your presence, your energy woven into the web of being itself. This would explain why synchronicities occur, why people across continents sense each other's emotions, why some intuitively know when someone they love is in danger. These are not mere coincidences. They may be echoes of entangled minds. Modern neuroscience cannot yet map this, but it hints at it. Coherence between individuals during meditation, subtle physiological changes between twins, the mysterious power of focus group intention. These patterns suggest something beyond chance. And if your consciousness is entangled with others, with nature, with the cosmos itself, then every thought, every emotion becomes part of a larger rhythm, a transmission not bounded by words or actions, a resonance that extends far beyond your body. Ancient traditions have taught this for centuries. In the Vedic tradition, all beings are seen as expressions of a single consciousness. In Buddhism, the idea of dependent origination states that nothing exists in isolation. Everything arises in relationship. In indigenous cosmologies, the web of life is sacred, alive, intelligent. These are not poetic metaphors. They are intuitive recognitions of what entanglement now confirms. There is no true isolation, only perspective. So how do we live with this knowledge? First, we must realize that our actions ripple outward in ways far more profound than we can measure. A silent judgment, a burst of compassion, a held intention. These are not private acts. They're threads woven into the living network. They affect not only you but the whole. Second, we must take responsibility for our energy, not just what we do, but what we think, what we carry, what we radiate. Because that is what the field responds to. Not just your behavior, but your state of being. And third, we must recognize that we are never alone. Loneliness is real as a feeling, but it is not true in essence. The deeper structure of the universe is one of intimacy, of profound entanglement. You are connected to all things, whether you realize it or not. Every breath you take is shared. Every heartbeat echoes in the rhythm of the stars. You are not a separate observer. You are a participant in the web of reality. Even your choices may influence more than you know. If intention shapes outcomes at a quantum level. If focus alters the probabilities that manifest. Then entanglement may allow those changes to ripple outward, influencing events beyond direct cause and effect. This is not mystical exaggeration. It is a natural extension of the science. But this web is not deterministic. It is not fate. It is possibility. A lattice of potential that is alive, dynamic, and interactive. And you are a node in that lattice. When you bring your awareness to this truth, something shifts. You begin to sense the invisible ties, the quiet harmony beneath apparent chaos, the unspoken guidance that flows when you are truly present. This isn't magic. It's participation. The more aligned your awareness, the more clearly you resonate through the field. And the more you resonate, the more you shape what resonates back. Which brings us to the core idea. Entanglement is not just a phenomenon. It's a reminder that every moment matters. That the line between self and other is thinner than you think. That intention, coherence, and presence are not just virtues. They are tools. Tools for moving within a reality far more connected than it appears. So, when you next feel isolated, remember this. The space between us is not empty. It is full of information, resonance, memory, full of the silent threads that bind all consciousness into one living whole. You are not cut off. You are not small. You are not a fragment. You are a spark within the network, a pulse within the field, a being of awareness woven into the fabric of existence. And that realization is not an escape. It is a return to the truth that's always been waiting just beyond the surface, just beyond the observable. You wake up in the morning. The sun rises, moves across the sky, and then sets. Your day follows a sequence, cause, then effect. One thing leads to another, feels obvious, feels true. But the closer we look, the more this sequence begins to unravel. Time, as you experience it, is a mental construct. It feels linear, but at the fundamental level of physics, that linearity breaks down. In the equations that govern the quantum world, time is not a one-way street. In some cases, it barely appears at all. Let's start with what physics actually says. In Newtonian mechanics, time is absolute. It flows uniformly, like a river carrying all objects forward. But Einstein changed that. In his theory of relativity, time is no longer fixed, it's relative to speed and gravity. The faster you move, the slower time passes for you. Clocks on satellites run faster than clocks on Earth. Astronauts age more slowly than people on the ground. These aren't just theories, they've been proven again and again. Now go deeper. At the quantum level, time behaves even more strangely. There are particles that seem to affect one another across time, not just space. This is retrocausality, the idea that a future measurement can influence a past state. It turns the entire idea of cause and effect on its head. In quantum experiments, the outcome of a measurement can determine how a particle behaved before the measurement was even made. That's not just weird, it's a challenge to everything we think we know about the direction of time. Even more striking is that many fundamental physical laws are time-symmetric. That means they don't distinguish between past and future. The math works both ways. In a sense, nothing about the basic structure of the universe demands that time move forward. The arrow of time, this feeling of a past flowing into a future, emerges from something else: entropy. Entropy is the tendency for systems to move toward disorder. This is why ice melts, why smoke rises, why things age. This increase in disorder gives us the illusion of a direction. But that illusion is tied to perception, to the way we process change, not necessarily to how reality works underneath it all. And this is where your mind enters the equation. Your brain is a time machine. It assembles fragments of memory and expectation into a coherent stream. It gives you the impression of continuity. But in moments of deep presence, in states of flow, meditation, or awe, that stream begins to dissolve. You step outside of time, just for a moment, just enough to feel that the now is all that truly exists. That's not an escape from reality. That may be the closest you've come to it. All experience happens in the present. The past is memory. The future is anticipation. The now is the only domain where perception, thought, and action occur. And yet, we build our lives around what was and what might be. But what if time is not just an illusion of perception, but a feature of consciousness itself? In some models of reality, particularly those exploring consciousness as a fundamental component of the universe, time is seen as emergent. That is, it arises only when there's an observer to divide one moment from another. Without observation, there is no flow, only a timeless field of possibilities. This is what mystics have described for centuries: the eternal now, the timeless moment, the silence beneath thought. These are not poetic abstractions. They are encounters with a deeper structure of reality, one where time is not linear, but layered, cyclical, or even multidirectional. And if time is not fixed, then your identity, your sense of being anchored to a single timeline, may also be more fluid than you assume. There is growing interest, both scientifically and spiritually, in the idea that consciousness can access nonlinear timelines. Dreams that predict future events. Intuitions that prove correct. Feelings of déjà vu, not as memory glitches, but as bleed-through from parallel versions of reality where events played out differently. Again, none of this fits comfortably within the classical model of a single, forward-moving time axis. But in a multidimensional or holographic model of consciousness, these experiences begin to make sense. And that brings us to your relationship with change. When you believe that the future is fixed, that the past is unchangeable, and that time moves in one direction, you feel trapped. You feel like a passenger on a train you can't steer. But when you begin to understand that time is plastic, that it may be shaped, navigated, or even accessed from beyond, your sense of agency expands. You're not limited to reacting to what time brings. You begin to participate in how it flows. This isn't about controlling the clock. It's about stepping out of it, finding that still point where the linear dissolves and a larger pattern becomes visible. In that space, your decisions gain power, not because they force change, but because they align with deeper currents. You don't manifest a new timeline by force. You resonate with it, and resonance only happens in the present. So what lies beyond the clock? A reality where time is not a prison, but a palette. Where the past is not dead, but malleable in the way it's held and perceived. Where the future is not predetermined, but waiting like a field of seeds, responding to attention, to coherence, to frequency. In this vision, your life is not a single thread. It's a tapestry of timelines, some overlapping, some dormant, all connected in ways your conscious mind can barely grasp. But awareness changes everything. When you become aware of time's true nature, not as a ruler, but as a tool, you begin to relate to your experience differently. You become less reactive, less stuck in cycles. You start to sense that what you feel, what you believe, and what you expect all send ripples through time. Not just forward, but in all directions. This is not theoretical. It is practical. Because once you recognize the illusion, you stop being controlled by it. You stop defining yourself by what happened. You stop fearing what might come. And you begin to live fully in the only place where life ever actually occurs. Right here, right now. Across every moment of your life, choices unfold. Decisions made, paths taken, opportunities missed. For every yes, there's a no. For every door opened, others remain closed. And yet, what if those other paths were not erased but simply moved beyond your reach? Still existing, still active in a layer of reality just beyond perception? This is the foundation of the many worlds hypothesis. Originating from quantum physics, this idea proposes that each quantum event, every time a particle could go left or right, spin up or spin down, doesn't result in just one outcome. Instead, every possibility actually occurs, splitting reality into multiple branches. Each path continues on, fully real, fully populated, and just as coherent as the one you're experiencing right now. This is not science fiction. It is a legitimate interpretation of quantum mechanics, first introduced by Hugh Everett in 1957. It suggests that the universe doesn't collapse possibilities into a single outcome. It honors all outcomes. Nothing is destroyed, only divided. If true, then right now, countless versions of reality exist in parallel. Versions where you made different choices, took different turns, said yes instead of no. Versions where events played out differently, where wars didn't happen, where relationships blossomed or faded, where discoveries came sooner or later. These are not ghost worlds. They are complete, functioning realities, just like this one, containing versions of you who are just as real and conscious as the one watching this video. The implications are staggering. First, it reframes the concept of regret. In this model, there is no ultimate wrong choice. Every possibility lives on, explored by a different version of you. Your consciousness is simply tuned into this branch of experience. But others continue in their own direction, just beyond your current awareness. Second, it raises questions about the nature of identity. If countless versions of you exist, then your sense of self is not fixed. It's a particular viewpoint within a vast field of potentials. You are not a static being. You are a stream of consciousness traveling through an infinite forest of timelines. But this isn't just theoretical. Many people report experiences that seem to point toward the reality of these alternate timelines. Déjà vu, the sudden, eerie sense that a moment has already occurred, even when it couldn't have. Strange dreams that feel more like memory than imagination. Moments of clarity when your life seems to pivot in an unexpected direction, as if reality shifted tracks beneath your feet. These are not proof, but they are clues. Indicators that consciousness may not be bound by a single line of time and causality. that awareness might have access, however subtle, to these parallel branches. And now we ask the deeper question. Can you influence which version of reality you align with? If all outcomes are possible, and if your consciousness is what tunes you into one of those outcomes, then your inner state becomes the steering mechanism. Thought, belief, emotion, and expectation act like tuning dials. You don't leap across timelines physically. You shift alignment by adjusting the frequency of your awareness. Think of reality as a radio. All the stations exist right now, but the one you hear is determined by the frequency you tune into. Change the dial and the music changes even though the other stations never stopped playing. You simply stopped receiving them. This is how manifestation takes on a new meaning. Not as a process of creating something from nothing, but as a way of aligning yourself with a version of reality where that outcome is already realized. When you think a new thought, adopt a new belief, take a new action, you're not forcing change, you're shifting into resonance with a new stream of probabilities. This also sheds light on the law of attraction, not as magical thinking, but as a kind of quantum navigation. When your thoughts and emotions are coherent, when they point in a unified direction, you become more aligned with timelines that match that inner coherence. And this is why visualization is so powerful. When you vividly imagine an experience, not with hope or desperation, but with clarity and belief, you begin to occupy the state of that experience. That state becomes a magnet, not because the universe rewards you, but because you begin to match the frequency of that alternate timeline, and your consciousness starts to shift accordingly. Again, this isn't about snapping your fingers and teleporting into a new life. It's about gradually steering your path by shifting your resonance. Small changes in thought, repeated consistently, begin to redirect your experience over time. And now consider this. If multiple versions of you exist, what does it mean to evolve? Maybe growth isn't about becoming something new, but about accessing the highest available version of yourself. That version already exists. The you who has healed. The you who has found clarity. The you who lives in alignment. They are not a fantasy. They are part of the field. Your task is to meet them, to tune into their energy, to act as they would act, to think as they would think, to feel as they would feel. And in doing so, you shift your presence toward their timeline. This is not imagination. It's transformation through recognition. Parallel realities also reframe the question of fate. If multiple futures exist, then destiny is not fixed. It is fluid. You are not bound to a single narrative. You have access to many. And the more conscious you become, the more aware you are of your power to shift between them. This doesn't mean life is always under your control. There are larger currents at play, collective timelines, energetic patterns, unseen forces. But your individual path within that larger weave is remarkably malleable. And that's the invitation. To stop living as if you are trapped in a single story. To stop defining yourself by your past alone. To recognize that every moment holds multiple futures, and you are the chooser, the observer, the one who tunes. So, is there another version of you living a different life? Absolutely, and they're just as real as you. But your power lies not in escaping to their world, but in bringing their energy here. Living with their clarity, feeling their confidence, acting with their alignment, and as you do, your reality begins to respond. This is the science of possibility, the physics of potential, the metaphysics of transformation. You are not a single thread of being. You are a multidimensional presence, standing in a universe that offers endless variations of truth. And each time you wake up, each time you choose differently, each time you step into awareness, you shift the entire field. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every belief you hold, these aren't just private experiences, they're energetic signatures interacting with a field that responds, records, and reflects. The question is not whether your thoughts influence reality, but how deeply and precisely they do. To begin, forget everything you've heard about wishful thinking and superficial manifestation techniques. This isn't about reciting affirmations or forcing outcomes. This is about understanding the mechanics of how reality responds to focused consciousness through the lens of quantum behavior, energy coherence, and the structure of the universe itself. In quantum physics, possibilities are not just theoretical, they're foundational. At the subatomic level, particles don't have fixed locations until observed. Before observation, they exist as a wave of probabilities, a cloud of potential states. This cloud collapses into a single reality when measured. But what does measurement really mean? In the deepest sense, it is attention, awareness, conscious focus, and that's where quantum intention begins to take shape. Your attention is not passive. It's participatory. When you focus your mind, your thoughts become aligned. When your emotions support that focus, your internal signal becomes coherent. And when belief locks it in, you're not just imagining, you're initiating. The quantum field responds to coherence. Coherence is not intensity. It's alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs move in a single direction, your energy becomes more structured, more powerful, more effective. Without coherence, your mental signals cancel each other out, like static noise in a radio. But with coherence, your intention becomes like a laser, capable of influencing outcomes far beyond what randomness would allow. This is not a metaphor. Experiments have shown that focused human intention can affect the behavior of random number generators, water crystals, even biological growth patterns. While skeptics dismiss these results as anomalies, their replication across time and culture suggests a deeper principle. Reality is not inert, it is reactive. And it responds most clearly to minds that are clear. This is the deeper structure behind manifestation. Not magic, not blind faith, but interaction with a responsive field of probability through the vehicle of conscious coherence. So how do you program reality? The answer begins with inner awareness. The first step is clarity. Not just knowing what you want, but understanding why. When your intention arises from alignment, not fear, not desperation, not egoic lack, its signal becomes clean. The field you're interacting with does not respond to the words you speak. It responds to the vibration you emit. If you say one thing but feel another, the signal becomes chaotic. But when thought, emotion, and belief are unified, your inner world begins to echo outward. The second step is embodiment. You must not wait for evidence before aligning with the outcome. That creates a feedback loop of lack. Instead, begin to feel the state of the fulfilled desire now. Live it internally before it arrives externally. You are not faking. You are shifting. And when that internal shift becomes stable, your alignment changes. The field around you begins to reflect your new signal, not because you commanded it, but because you joined a version of reality where that outcome already exists. This is how possibility becomes presence. The third step is detachment. This doesn't mean apathy. It means non-grasping. When you fixate on the outcome, you create tension. That tension introduces resistance. It fractures coherence. But when you trust the process, when you release the need to control every aspect, you remain open to paths you cannot yet perceive. Often, the outcome arrives not in the form you expected, but in a form more aligned with your highest trajectory. The quantum field is not your servant. It's your mirror. It reflects not your demands, but your dominant frequency. So the question becomes, what are you broadcasting? Most people are unconscious broadcasters. Their thoughts contradict their feelings. Their beliefs conflict with their desires. Their intentions are wrapped in fear. And then they wonder why nothing shifts. But those who learn to align, to think clearly, feel confidently, and believe steadily, begin to experience something different. Life becomes less random. Patterns emerge. Opportunities align. Events unfold with uncanny precision. This is not luck. This is resonance. And it requires practice. Like tuning an instrument, your inner world must be refined. Doubt must be examined. Fear must be released. Identity must evolve. Because the universe is not withholding anything from you. It's simply matching your signal. This brings us to identity itself. The most powerful form of manifestation does not come from wanting something outside of you. It comes from becoming the version of yourself who already lives that reality. Not pretending, not role-playing, but stepping into the vibrational truth of who you must be to live what you desire. This means reconfiguring your habits, your language, your mindset, your self-image. It means becoming the blueprint, not chasing it. Because the field doesn't respond to your hopes. It responds to your alignment. And that alignment is not one single act. It is consistency over time. Your thoughts today become your reality tomorrow. Your emotions today shape the probabilities available to you next week. Your beliefs act as a gatekeeper, allowing certain possibilities in while filtering others out. And belief, more than anything, is the root signal the field uses to construct your experience. If you believe that reality is hard, slow, and external, you will encounter a world that mirrors that belief. If you believe that life is a creative, responsive, intelligent flow, then that is what you will see. This is not merely psychological. It is energetic. It is vibrational. It is quantum. And now we arrive at the most overlooked element of all. Gratitude. Gratitude is not a social virtue. It is a frequency. When you feel gratitude, you align with sufficiency, with openness, with presence. You move out of lack and into resonance with timelines that reflect fulfillment. Gratitude stabilizes your signal, closes the loop, and in doing so, it amplifies your influence. So manifestation is not about getting. It is about aligning, not about chasing outcomes, but about becoming outcomes. You are not here to beg the universe. You are here to co-create with it. You are not waiting for permission. You are broadcasting a signal, and that signal is being heard. The quantum field listens in silence. It responds without judgment, and it reflects with precision. The more coherent you become, the more clearly reality responds. So ask yourself, what am I broadcasting? What do I believe is possible? Am I willing to align with the version of me who lives that possibility? Fully, without hesitation. Because the code is not outside of you. You are the code. Every time you look at something, you change it. That's not philosophy. It's physics. In the quantum realm, the observer is not just a passive witness to events. The observer is an integral part of the outcome. This is known as the observer effect. And it changes everything. At the subatomic level, particles behave in bizarre ways. They act like waves when unmeasured, existing as a cloud of probabilities, every possible outcome suspended in a state of superposition. But once measured, once observed, that cloud collapses. One result emerges. The others disappear. This isn't speculation, it's verified science. The double-slit experiment reveals this vividly. When electrons are fired at a barrier with two slits and no one is watching, they interfere with themselves, creating a wave pattern on the detection screen. This indicates they're not behaving like particles. They're behaving like waves of probability. But the moment you observe which slit an electron passes through, that interference vanishes. The electron behaves like a particle, chooses a path. The act of observation changes the behavior of the system. Now extend that beyond the lab. If observation collapses probabilities into outcomes, and if you are the observer, then you are not separate from the unfolding of events. You are participating, constantly, whether you're aware of it or not. And this doesn't just apply to scientific experiments. It applies to your life. You observe your reality with your thoughts, your expectations, your beliefs. Every time you pay attention to something, you influence how it develops. Not by controlling it, but by becoming entangled with it, by collapsing potential into form through the lens of your awareness. In other words, you don't just experience reality, you shape it by the way you perceive it. This is why your mindset is so critical. When you expect struggle, you reinforce the probability of struggle. When you focus on limitation, the field responds by narrowing your options. Your perception is not neutral. It is a frequency, and reality echoes it back. This is not a metaphor. It's a mechanism. And now consider this. If attention shapes outcomes, then distraction is dilution. In a world saturated with noise, attention has become your most valuable currency. Every time you scatter it, every time you give your focus to fear, anger, or doubt, you disperse your influence. The field cannot reflect coherence when the signal is fractured. But when you become fully present, when you observe with clarity, calm, and intention, something extraordinary happens. Your perception begins to align with order. Patterns emerge. Synchronicities increase. Circumstances rearrange in ways that support the inner lens you're holding. This is not fantasy. It is your natural ability, forgotten beneath the layers of conditioned thought. Observation is creation in motion. This leads to a profound realization. The world you see is not out there. It is filtered, shaped, and structured by your inner world. You see not what's there, but what you are tuned to perceive. And your tuning is not fixed, it's chosen. So ask yourself, what do you look for in your daily life? Do you expect disappointment? Then you'll find it. Do you anticipate beauty? Then your eyes will begin to catch it everywhere. Your brain has a built-in filter called the reticular activating system. It highlights information based on what you deem important. But beyond biology, your consciousness operates in the same way, amplifying the experiences you focus on. This is why personal transformation begins with observation. Not changing the outer world, but changing the lens through which you see it. When you become aware of the assumptions running your perception, when you bring them into the light, you reclaim your power as an active participant in creation. And this is not limited to big ideas. It shows up in the smallest interactions. The way you observe another person affects how they show up. When you judge, they shrink. When you see their highest, they rise. Your gaze becomes an invitation or a limitation. Your presence creates the space in which others remember who they are or forget. And that begins with how you observe yourself. If you see yourself through the lens of your past, of your failures, of your doubts, you reinforce those patterns. But when you observe yourself with compassion, with clarity, with courage, you begin to collapse a different version of you into form. You are not defined by your past. You are defined by your focus. Right now, infinite versions of you exist as potential. The one that emerges is the one you observe most consistently. So be careful what you look for, because you're likely to find it. But here's the twist. This principle doesn't mean you deny reality. It doesn't mean pretending something isn't happening. It means choosing where to direct your awareness. It means acknowledging the present without becoming a prisoner of it. It means recognizing that your observation is a creative act, not a passive one. This also reframes challenges. When you face adversity and observe it as growth, you empower yourself. When you see it as punishment, you disempower yourself. The event remains the same, but your perspective determines how it affects you, what you learn, and what comes next. This is the true nature of conscious observation. It's not about controlling everything that happens. It's about engaging with what happens in a way that shifts your trajectory. Because the more intentional your gaze, the more creative your power. And now consider this. What would happen if you began to observe your life as sacred? What if every moment was an opportunity to focus, to listen, to choose a new meaning? What if your awareness became a tool, not for judgment or control, but for clarity and transformation? That's the observer effect in its highest form. Not just in the lab, but in your thoughts, your relationships, your growth. Because reality at its core is not fixed. It is fluid. And your attention is the brush that paints it. So look wisely. See with purpose. Observe with the awareness that your gaze is not neutral, it's generative. And in that recognition, you begin to reclaim the most forgotten truth of all. That the world does not simply happen to you. It happens through you. Long before quantum mechanics, long before particle accelerators and mathematical formulas, humanity had another way of understanding the cosmos. They listened, they meditated, observed, fasted, and waited in silence. Not just to discover the external world, but to understand the nature of existence itself. And in that silence, they found something that sounds eerily familiar to modern physics. They found the void. In the Tao Te Ching, written over 2,500 years ago, there is a line, "We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want." Emptiness is not seen as lack, but as source, the space where function arises. The Tao, which cannot be named, is not a god, not a force, but the origin of all form, ungraspable yet ever-present. In Hindu cosmology, the concept of Brahman refers to the unchanging, infinite, immanent reality that underlies all existence. It is not matter. It is not mind. It is pure being, the substratum from which everything comes and into which everything dissolves. In Buddhism, sunyata, often translated as emptiness, is not nihilism. It is the recognition that all things are empty of inherent, independent existence. Everything is interdependent. Everything is in flux. There is no fixed self, no solid ground. And yet, from this emptiness arises compassion, clarity, and peace. From the Kabbalistic Ein Sof to the Aboriginal Dreamtime, from the Native American concept of the Great Mystery to the Gnostic Pleroma, cultures across time and geography have identified a background presence. Not as an object of worship, but as the silent source behind all appearance. They gave it different names, but the qualities were the same: silent, timeless, formless, infinite, found not through effort, but through surrender. And now, with the rise of quantum physics, those ancient intuitions are no longer confined to myth or mysticism. The quantum void is described as the foundational field from which all particles arise. The vacuum is not empty. It is a sea of potential, a state of pure possibility, filled with fluctuations that give birth to the universe we know. Modern physics has confirmed that even in empty space, virtual particles emerge, interact, and vanish, suggesting that space is alive, dynamic, and generative. This field has no mass, no charge, no temperature, but it creates all of those things. Now compare that to the Tao, to Brahman, to the unmanifest source described in countless sacred texts. What once was myth may now be understood as metaphor for something real, something foundational. Science and spirituality are not opposites. They are two lenses aimed at the same mystery. Science dissects it. Mysticism experiences it. Science asks, what is this made of? Mysticism asks, who am I within it? And when both lenses are clear, the image that emerges is no longer contradiction, it's confirmation. Consider the role of the observer. In ancient traditions, the seer is not just someone who sees, but someone who transforms through seeing. The shaman who journeys beyond this world, the mystic who enters silence, the yogi who becomes one with the breath, all engage in conscious observation. Not for analysis, for alignment. And what does quantum physics tell us? That the act of observation collapses potential into form. That awareness is not separate from the field. It's part of the process by which reality takes shape. This is the bridge between disciplines. Not just shared language, but shared insight. Both traditions understand that reality is shaped from a field of possibility. That silence is not absence, but source. That consciousness is not confined to the brain. It is part of the fabric of being. And now we ask, what does this mean for your experience? It means that the wisdom of the ancients is not outdated. It's relevant, perhaps more than ever. Meditation, prayer, ritual, mantra, movement. These are not mere traditions. They are technologies of consciousness, ways of tuning the self to the deeper field, not to escape the world, but to become more effective within it. A still mind does not mean apathy. It means access. Access to the layers beneath thought. Access to the awareness that observes all passing phenomena without becoming identified. This awareness is the gateway to the void, not as a concept but as a lived experience. And when you begin to access that space, something changes. The grip of identity loosens, time softens, fear recedes, and a new kind of intelligence begins to speak, quietly, intuitively, unmistakably. This intelligence is not emotional. It is not logical. It is foundational. It's the intelligence of the field itself. The guidance that arises not from calculation, but from resonance. Ancient cultures listened to this guidance. They knew the seasons not by clock, but by rhythm. They made decisions not by analysis, but by harmony. They honored the unseen because they understood that the seen world is only a fraction of what exists. And today you have access to the same depth. But you must unlearn the noise. You must remember the stillness. You must recognize that the answers you seek may not be found in language, but in presence. Because presence is the bridge between particle and wave, between knowing and mystery, between the measurable and the meaningful. So as modern science continues to explore the outer edge of understanding, don't forget the inner path. The one that has been walked for millennia. The one that leads not to more data, but to deeper clarity. Because the quantum void is not only a physical phenomenon, it is a spiritual truth. And within that truth, the boundaries begin to dissolve. Between self and other, between matter and energy, between knowledge and wisdom. And in that dissolution, you begin to remember something ancient, something sacred, that the void is not far away. It is here. It is now. It is you. There's a presence behind your thoughts, a stillness beneath your sensations, a space between your breaths that most people never notice. That space is not empty. It's a doorway. You've heard the theory. You've grasped the concepts. But theory alone does not create transformation. To truly understand the quantum void, it must be experienced. Not through external proof, but through inner contact. And the way in is tuning. You do not force your way into the void. You match its frequency. You align. And through that alignment, access is granted not as reward, but as natural result. So what does it mean to tune? It means shifting your state of consciousness from the noise of form to the silence of potential. It means quieting the inner static so that your awareness can attune to the subtle rhythm beneath it all. This doesn't require belief. It requires practice. Let's begin with breath. Breath is the bridge between your conscious mind and the unconscious rhythms of your body. Most of the day, it runs in the background. Automatic. Unnoticed. But the moment you bring awareness to it, something changes. Inhale slowly, gently, deep into your diaphragm. Hold for a moment. Now exhale longer than your inhale and let everything soften. This isn't about control. It's about presence. As your breath deepens and your nervous system relaxes, your brainwaves begin to shift. From beta, the frequency of focused thinking, down into alpha and theta, where inner awareness expands and the boundaries between self and environment begin to dissolve. Do this for a few minutes. Stay with it. Don't force silence, allow it to arrive. And when it does, you'll begin to feel it. That quiet pressure behind your awareness. That sense of openness without form. That's the field. That's the void. Another method is visualization, not as fantasy, but as intentional resonance. Close your eyes. Picture yourself standing in complete stillness. No background, no ground, no sky, just pure silent space. Feel yourself dissolve into it. Let go of identity, of name, of story, and become only awareness. In this state, you're not imagining a void, you're aligning with the frequency of pure potential. The more real it feels, the more your consciousness begins to engage with that level of the field. And once you feel that state, just rest there. Don't ask for anything. Don't expect results. Just observe. Because the field responds not to force, but to coherence. When you stop grasping, when you release the urge to analyze, something opens. You begin to feel a pulse that doesn't come from your body. A rhythm that isn't your heartbeat. A sense of intelligence, not personal but present. And that is contact. Another tool, sound. Sound is vibration. And vibration is the language of the universe. Certain frequencies can help bring your system into resonance with the void. Binaural beats, solfeggio tones, or deep harmonic chanting can entrain your brainwaves, guiding you into theta and delta states, states where perception expands and separation dissolves. You are not trying to escape. You are tuning in. Just as a radio does not create music but receives it, your consciousness can begin to receive impressions, insights, or shifts that come from deeper layers of being. These are not hallucinations. They are signal, but only when the noise is low enough to hear them. This is why stillness matters. Stillness is not inactivity. It is the condition in which true activity begins. Meditation, breathwork, visualization, and sound are all ways of creating that condition. Not as goals, but as doorways. Another practice, focused intention. Once you're in that tuned state, once the mind is quiet and the awareness is clear, you can begin to place intention into the field. Not as a demand, not as a wish, but as a resonance. You don't say, I want this. You feel the state of it already being so, not as pretending but as choosing the frequency. For example, if your intention is peace, don't think about peace. Feel it. Let your breath carry it. Let your body relax into it. Let your energy radiate it. And hold that resonance without needing anything in return. The field doesn't respond to need. It responds to frequency. And in that tuned state, you become like a tuning fork, vibrating in harmony with the timeline, the outcome, the version of reality that matches that state. And here's the key. You don't have to hold it forever. Even brief moments of true coherence can ripple into your life in powerful ways. The field does not require time, it requires clarity. Over time, as you repeat this process, your nervous system begins to adapt. Your thoughts become less reactive. Your presence deepens. And reality begins to shift. Not because you pushed it, but because you aligned with a version of it that already existed. This is how healing happens. This is how insight emerges. This is how transformation begins, not from struggle, but from stillness. And it doesn't end when the meditation ends. The goal is not to live in the void, but to carry its resonance into your life. To bring that stillness into movement, that awareness into interaction, that intelligence into creation. So you return to your job, your family, your daily activities, but with a new frequency, a subtler presence, a steadier mind. And in that state, you begin to shape your environment not by effort but by embodiment. Because when you tune into the void, you remember something vital, that you are not separate from the field. You are not a visitor. You are not knocking at a locked door. You are the void expressing itself through form. And when you quiet the noise, that truth begins to shine through. So begin with breath. Begin with silence. Begin with stillness. And know that the more you tune inward, the more clearly the field responds. Not with words, not with guarantees, but with guidance, alignment, and resonance. And in that resonance, your life becomes a reflection of the vast, timeless intelligence that moves through all things, including you, especially you. When you step beyond what's familiar, beyond what's measurable, definable, and logically explainable, you enter a space filled with immense potential and equal responsibility. The quantum void is not a playground for curiosity alone. It's a domain of transformation, yes, but also one where confusion, distortion, and imbalance can take root if approached without clarity. Misunderstanding this space doesn't just lead to ungrounded beliefs. It can lead to disillusionment, spiritual bypassing, and emotional instability. So today, we're not exploring mystery for the sake of wonder. We're exploring how to engage with the unknown wisely. Let's begin with the allure of control. When people first encounter quantum ideas like observer influence, manifestation, or multiple timelines, they often feel an intoxicating sense of power. The suggestion that thoughts shape reality can be deeply liberating, but also dangerously misleading, because the truth is more nuanced. You don't control reality in the way a director controls a film set. You influence a field of probability through resonance and alignment. That influence is powerful, but it's not absolute. There are larger patterns, collective forces, karmic currents, and unknown variables always at play. Overpersonalizing your outcomes can lead to guilt, shame, or spiritual arrogance. When something unwanted happens, it doesn't mean you failed at manifesting. When someone else is suffering, it doesn't mean they created it with bad thoughts. That mindset oversimplifies a complex universe. You're not a god with a joystick. You're a conscious node in a dynamic, interconnected field. What you feel, think, and believe matters deeply, but it's not the only force at work. This brings us to the danger of bypassing. Spiritual bypassing is when people use elevated language, ideas, or states of consciousness to avoid dealing with unresolved pain, trauma, or shadow aspects of themselves. They say, "It's all an illusion," or "I've transcended suffering," while their behavior remains reactive, wounded, or disconnected. Engaging with the void requires deep honesty. Not perfection, but presence. You must bring your whole self. Wounds, confusion, fear. Not to suppress them, but to let the stillness hold them. The quantum void doesn't just amplify light. It reflects what's unresolved. So before chasing advanced techniques or metaphysical mastery, ask, am I grounded? Am I emotionally regulated? Am I doing this to awaken or to escape? Because any attempt to use these ideas to bypass your humanity will ultimately collapse. The void is not a place to hide. It is a mirror, and it will show you what's truly within you. Now let's address the myth of instant results. The idea that you can simply visualize something and watch it materialize can be misleading if not placed in proper context. Yes, focused intention has power. Yes, alignment matters. But the timing of outcomes is often influenced by unseen layers. Subconscious beliefs, karmic patterns, energetic resistance, and the readiness of your nervous system to actually receive the change. Forcing manifestation creates frustration. True influence flows from coherence, not craving. From inner congruence, not intellectual force. So if something isn't showing up the way you expected, ask deeper questions. Are your beliefs really aligned? Is your identity congruent with what you're trying to create? Are you holding unconscious contradictions? If you're trying to attract love, but believe you're unworthy, there's a signal conflict. If you're visualizing abundance, but feeling lack, there's a resonance mismatch. This isn't punishment, it's feedback. And the void is the most honest mirror you'll ever encounter. Another trap, attaching spiritual meaning to everything. While it's true that life reflects your inner state, not everything is a cosmic test or a divine message. Some things are just consequences. Some events are just part of collective motion. Assigning symbolic meaning to every bump in the road can create paranoia, perfectionism, or obsessive self-monitoring. The point is not to interpret everything. The point is to participate with awareness, without losing your center to overanalysis. And let's speak clearly about emotional instability. When people open themselves to deeper dimensions of reality, they often become hypersensitive. Their perceptions shift, boundaries blur, the sense of identity becomes fluid. For some, this leads to awakening. For others, to destabilization. If you're experiencing anxiety, insomnia, depersonalization, or overwhelming emotion while exploring altered states, slow down. Ground yourself. Return to the body. Work with a teacher, a therapist, or someone who can anchor you. Because tuning into the void is powerful, but not always gentle. Just as electrical current must be regulated to avoid burnout, so must consciousness expansion be integrated to avoid spiritual fragmentation. Grounding practices matter more than ever in these explorations. Eat well, sleep deeply, move your body, stay connected to your environment. Not because the body is separate from spirit, but because it is spirit expressing itself in form. Integration happens through embodiment. This leads us to one of the most essential truths, humility. The quantum void is not something you conquer. It's something you meet with respect. Not as a seeker of secrets, but as a student of reality. Every mystical tradition, every esoteric school, every genuine spiritual lineage teaches the same thing. Humility precedes access. Arrogance closes the door. Receptivity opens it. You are not here to manipulate the field. You are here to harmonize with it. You are not here to command creation. You are here to remember that you are creation waking up to itself. So yes, you have influence. Yes, your awareness changes the world. But wield that influence with integrity. Use your awareness to heal, not to dominate. Use your insight to serve, not to elevate your ego. Because the field remembers. The void is not empty. It reflects with precision. And what you bring into it, your motives, your energy, your alignment, will echo back. This is not meant to instill fear. It's meant to awaken reverence. Because engaging with the infinite is not just a right. It's a responsibility. So take care of your signal. Take care of your mind. Take care of the people around you, because the more tuned you become, the more powerful your presence becomes, and the more it affects those who are still finding their way. This journey is not about mastery. It's about maturity. The maturity to walk into the unknown not with certainty, but with grace. The maturity to sit in the silence, even when there are no immediate answers. The maturity to understand that the deepest truths are not grasped, but lived. You've looked beyond the veil. You've explored the holographic nature of existence, the strange fluidity of time, the mystery of the observer, and the silence of the void. Now the question becomes real, immediate, and deeply personal. What now? What do you do with this knowledge? How do you live, not just understanding the nature of the quantum void, but embodying it? Because the purpose of all of this is not escape. It's embodiment. To live from the void doesn't mean abandoning the world. It means living in it with more awareness, more precision, more alignment. It means recognizing that every moment is shaped not just by action, but by vibration. That your choices are not limited to physical movement, but include your attention, your thoughts, your frequency. When you live from the void, you don't just do things differently. You are different. You begin to notice that your state precedes your results. That your inner atmosphere becomes the blueprint for your external life. That the world is not fixed, but responsive. You stop reacting to circumstances and start initiating frequencies. You stop chasing outcomes and start tuning to timelines. This is not a philosophy. It is a practical shift. One that you can bring into every area of your life. Let's begin with presence. Presence is the most accessible expression of the void. It is stillness in motion. When you are fully present, without narrative, without projection, you return to the zero-point field. You return to potential. In that moment, you become less identified with form, with ego, with memory. You become the awareness that sees all things. And from that awareness, your actions become cleaner. Your choices become clearer. You begin to move from coherence, not confusion. Living from the void means making decisions not from fear, but from alignment. It means listening not to the loudest voice, but to the quiet intelligence beneath the noise. It means sensing the field not as a concept, but as a constant presence, gently responding to your every shift in state. And this changes how you relate to others. You stop trying to control. You stop trying to convince. Instead, you begin to radiate. People feel your presence before you speak. They sense the stability in your nervous system. They feel seen, not by your opinions, but by your awareness. Because the void doesn't argue. It doesn't push. It doesn't react. It reveals. When you live from that space, you become a mirror, one that reflects people back to themselves. Not as correction, but as invitation. And in that way, your very being becomes transformational. Now look at your habits. What would it mean to structure your day not just around tasks, but around vibration? To ask, not what do I need to get done, but what frequency am I holding? From that question, your actions become intentional. You eat to support clarity. You move to release static. You rest to reset your signal. You work not just to produce, but to express alignment. Even your goals begin to change. You stop measuring success only by outcome and begin measuring it by congruence. Did I act from my center? Did I stay aligned with the version of me who knows? Did I allow the field to guide me? Or did I force my way forward? This shift in orientation doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful in a new way. Power no longer looks like control. It looks like clarity. It looks like someone who can walk into chaos and remain tuned. Someone who can face resistance without collapsing. Someone who can see the game without being trapped by it. And that person is not a fantasy. That person is you. Already within you. Already accessible. Because the void doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It doesn't reward performance. It responds to frequency. And you tune that frequency not through willpower but through awareness. Through choosing again and again to return to your center. To breathe. To notice. To align. To remember that you are not the thought. You are the awareness of thought. You are not the fear. You are the space in which fear arises and passes. You are not the identity. You are the field that holds all identities. From that space, creation becomes different. Not a hustle, not a chase, but a natural unfolding. A dance between inner coherence and outer response. So what does it look like to live this way? It looks like acting without attachment. Caring deeply but not clinging to outcomes. Taking risks but not from desperation. Creating value not for validation but as an expression of your inner state. It looks like trusting the invisible structure beneath events. It looks like letting go of stories you've outgrown, even when they're familiar. It looks like surrendering to silence, not as a void of meaning, but as the place where meaning is born. And most of all, it looks like remembering who and what you truly are. Not a name, not a role, not even a soul, but awareness itself. Infinite, timeless, creative. When you live from that remembrance, fear begins to lose its grip. Because how can you fear the unknown when you've touched the unknown within yourself? How can you doubt your path when the field confirms your alignment through synchronicity? How can you settle for the ordinary when you've sensed the extraordinary that is always just beneath the surface? This isn't a concept. It's an invitation to stop living reactively, to stop waiting for proof, to stop asking if you're ready. You are ready. You are already connected to the field, already part of the intelligence that moves through stars and silence alike. The only question is, will you align with it? Will you act from it? Will you become the version of yourself that has always known? Because this is not a journey to somewhere else. It's a return to what you've never left. The void is not the end. It is the beginning. And now that you've touched it, truly touched it, it lives within your awareness, waiting to be expressed in every word, every step, every breath. You are the observer. You are the wave. You are the field, live as such, and watch reality respond.